All right, what's up, Investor Central? This is Eric here with our monthly backtest. What I wanted to do today was go over some updates that we have on our previous data and also go over what's been updated and what came in during the month of April. Real quick, just so you guys understand how this looks, all the purple or pink you can say here are the updated values for some of these. So even as far back as October, which was some of the private data that we had, something like Google here still actually went up higher. All right, so the update for that being in April, end of April, still went higher. Now looking at a 300% return. Google now announcing that they have dividends for and issuing a dividend for their stock. Apple down here was still the main miss in December. December was when we had our initial release, but Amazon even here still had a higher return. Now April 10th, now looking at about a 200% return. So if you had held on to some of these from before or noticed these, they took out very, very long expirations and as a result, still went even higher. Tesla here with a little bit higher. This one initially, if you see here with the purple W means it was initially a loss and now or a miss and now is looking at a win. What those did too was it did help boost some of our numbers for our overall hit rates. Now you're looking at January at 100%. And here, December only with one miss, February with only one miss. We will be careful with these numbers from February because I will point out that in February, there were a few that had very small wins before they retraced or dropped significantly afterwards. This Pinterest and these two Shopify calls, you can imagine were somewhat of earnings plays, especially this Pinterest one. And those retraced a bit afterwards, dropped afterwards, ending up as a loss, but still had a chance for about an 8%, 8 or 9% return for those ones. We have this Intel one here in red simply because with our newer data, which our version 2 now shows us, was that this Intel call was actually a sell, a 23.21 million. And while it did return a 12% return so far in terms of its highs, it did actually, it's dropped quite significantly since. And if you take a look here, they did buy or sell these for December of the end of December of 2026. So these ones actually, if you consider these to be a sell, are actually up quite a bit in terms of how much these premiums have dropped in terms of the selling the calls. March is what I would say is the worst month of this. There was only Riot, CRM, AMD. These three were misses out of the 12 callouts from STAX AI that we did have. And if you take a quick look down here, simply because we did switch over to a different interface, we did swap out for version 2, so those ones are stuck where they are. Overall, for our older version, now our hit rate's looking at a 93.2%. That's 68 out of 73 have actually hit positive returns, with the highs averaging about 135%. The average number of days to those highs is now at a 44 days. Keep in mind the way I have this calculated does include the weekends and not just market days. Now let's switch over to version 2 over here. And what I wanted to point out here for version 2 is we have quite a few of these weeklies. And weeklies meaning they expired within that week. All these ones that are in this light orange basically have already expired. So if you're looking at those actually did pretty well. That was during the SPY and QQQ drops. There were a lot of puts being taken in, and our STAX AI did catch quite a few of those. You'll take a look here. A lot of returns ranging in the 20, 30, 40% range. There were a few that only got about 5 or 6% returns, but the average number of days to those highs was all within 1 or 2 days. Overall, for those hit rates, we had about 40 different callouts from STAX AI through the month of April. And as a result, we have about 37 of those returning in positive numbers. The average rate of return on those is only 26.88, but keep in mind that we do have a few of these that are poised and bought for 2025, even 2026. So they still do have quite a bit of time to add to those values. AMD was one of the misses here. JPM and QQQ were some of the misses. These ones being weeklies at the beginning of April have already expired. So these are already locked in as misses here. If you look a bit further back, what we do have here is Tesla and NEM originally were misses for back in March, and those have now, Teslas have now become wins. And if you can notice here, around that 18 to 20% return of those. These popped just a little bit and then have kind of dropped back down. Tesla obviously has been struggling, as you may know, for the last few months with a bunch of bad news about what's going on. Keep in mind these QQQ buy for calls, AMD buy for calls, CRM, those ones still have time. If you take a look at there, 2025, 2026, 2025. So those still have quite some time to recover, if anything. There were still a few updates of further highs that you may have gotten if you kept some of these February calls, Google here, XOP, AR. And if you take a look at those numbers too, these ones are in the 100 to 200% ranges, which is pretty awesome. So if you held out with those ones, expected higher returns because they have held or they bought for much later in the year or much later in the upcoming years, those ones are looking at quite some awesome returns. XOP here with a 280% return updated for April the 7th. As you can see here, February was only out of 25 out of 28. Now looking at 27 out of 28, there's only one miss here, which was the QQQ. This one still does have some time until the beginning of next year. March originally started out with only 11 out of 22 of these prints. There was another one that did come in, and now we have quite a few that have now become wins in March. 8 more have become wins since my last update, March 19th. If you take a look further up here, I will also show you guys real quick the couple that have come in for May, CVS, BEKE, and WCC. These ones have already returned quite some profits already. CVS looking up after they dropped from earnings. WCC, I do notice there are some people that already got some 20, 30% returns on those. These will be updated in our next back test that you'll see next month. So far this 3 out of 3. There are a few more that have come in, but if you do have stacks, go ahead, check those out. We've got some pretty interesting ones coming up. Tiva right here, there are earnings coming out tomorrow morning. I will do my best to try to update you guys as to what happens with that. But this is an unusual situation where they are spending quite some money on these calls for March of next year. So about a little under a year of time that they've purchased. The purple here obviously are the updates from last time to this time. So we do have some updates and some higher prices for quite a few of these. Now, what I also did here was I took these ones over here on the right side. This is our version 1 numbers that you already saw earlier. And what we also have here are our version 2. So combined with everything together, our hit rate, we've had 174 total STAX AI prints. 160 of them have become winners. The highs average about 103% with an average of 37 days for them to hit those highs. I will point out with our newer version of Stacks, there are quite a few more weeklies that have come in that have actually expanded. So you'll notice here, we usually have only about 10, maybe 15 prints come in our old version. With our newer version now, we are expecting to get quite a few more prints, quite a few more callouts from STAX AI. And again, hitting mostly in that 80 to 90% range. If they do purchase for quite some extra time, for next year or the year after, 2025, 2026, we do expect that those values may eventually bump up a little bit higher. A very interesting stat that I wanted to also give you guys here was overall, how many of our prints are giving us 50% returns, 25% returns, 100% returns? So over 25%, there's about 110 of them that return over 25%. That's a 63%. 63% of our 174 prints that actually are giving us returns over 25. 78, so 44% are over 50%. 45, so one out of every four of our STAX AI callouts are giving us over 100% return. And 21 of our 174 are giving over 200% return. So if you take a look at these, we're getting some pretty solid returns with the way that STAX AI is shouting out and allowing us to understand what's happening in the markets. Again, this is Eric here with Investor Central Club, STAX AI. We've been very excited to share with you guys all this back testing data. If you do have any questions, don't hesitate. Go ahead and email us at help@investorcentralclub.com. We'd be happy to answer those questions for you. And again, look at these backtest data, look at these receipts of what our software is able to do for you. Until the next one, I'll see you guys at the next backtest.